would like to call to order the Board of Supervisors meeting for Monday, January 20th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Would you please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to read the following statement and hopefully add some clarification to tonight's process. First off, thanks to all of you for coming this evening, and I hope to see many of you return to a regularly scheduled town board meeting in the future. Now that you're familiar with the location, the meeting, and who's here. All right. For informational purposes, I'd like to address why another venue was selected for the Plan Commission, why another venue was not selected for the Plan Commission meeting. We've had a lot of feedback on that topic. The only method to broadcast live, all right, to the entire community is to utilize this town hall facility where our TV station is located behind those back double doors. Without that capability, we cannot broadcast live. Everything is taped delayed. We are sorry if this may have inconvenienced some of you. We tried to inform as many people as possible about our limitations and why ahead of time. Although the second site may have not been ideal, many of the people seem to make the most of it from what we heard. So we thank Brenda and Sherry, who arranged with the Institute Saloon to be able to use that facility, and I'm sure that the Institute Saloon is grateful to you. All right. If you have never attended a regular town board meeting in the past, we do follow a set protocol, which is different than what is followed at the Plan Commission meeting. The procedures for a regular town board meeting include public participation on non-agenda items at the start of our meeting. Tonight, given the unusual and unique circumstances created by an overflow crowd on Tuesday, I will allow individuals who have not been given an opportunity to comment to do so during public participation. In an attempt to eliminate any surprises regarding tonight's meeting process, this was discussed with the Bayshore Quarry leadership. Under our town rules of order, the time allotted for public input is limited to 15 minutes. But again, given the circumstances, it will be flexible, but I encourage you to be brief and to the point. A simple "we support" or "don't support" would more than suffice. Once public comment is closed and the board meeting begins, there will be no further public input on topics related to the agenda unless information is requested from the board. All right? As we do with all town board meetings, we allow individuals or developers requesting a change in zoning or a conditional use an opportunity to present their case to the full town board. The board, after hearing comments from the chair of the Plan Commission, Linda Waite, we give the petitioner an opportunity to address us directly. This is done because in a normal Plan Commission meeting, the only persons hearing from the petitioner are members of the commission. Today's circumstances are a little different in that 4 of the 5 board members you see before you sat through the entire 7-hour presentation, are fully aware of the issues and the subsequent recommendation made by the Plan Commission. Therefore, we are anticipating a brief presentation and discussion with the petitioner. So I wanted to just spend a minute with you because many of you have not been here before, so at least you understand the ground rules. All right? So with that, we will start our meeting, and we'll start with a roll call to establish a quorum. Amy, if you would, please.
Supervisor Jim Nellen.
Here.
Supervisor John Stavinus.
Here.
Chairman Dan Wolfel.
Here.
Supervisor Linda Waite.
Here.
Supervisor Mark Hain.
Here. We're going to pass on the meet and greet tonight because we want to hold this meeting under 7 hours. So we're going to assume that by now you know us and we know most of you. So if you'll beg my pardon on that issue. All right, public participation. This is what I just talked about. We will give those people who have not spoken an opportunity to come up and address the board. The microphone is there. Please introduce yourself and where you live. And if someone back here would like to start, we'll be happy to hear from you.
Before I introduce myself, we need to thank Linda for shoveling the walk.
And Amy.
Glad you got the ice off the walk, ladies. Okay, good evening. My name's Dan Mathine. I was not able to get in on the 14th. I did enjoy watching it on TV. Act 67 states only the facts, and I want to talk about application to response, or item number 7 in the conditional use permit. Act 67 says only the facts can be used by the governing body to approve or deny a CUP application. I believe Act 67 is at the county level. From my reading of it, the RPC committee meeting scheduled for February is where the rubber meets the road. Here at the town level, we have the ability to recognize public opinion in making our recommendations. Okay? Since we, as the town, are only making a non-binding recommendation, the petition signed by over 2,500 people, the fact that there have been almost 200 financial donors to contest this project, and just this morning I received a call from a person requesting a red sign. Have you noticed the red signs? Anyway, these facts need to be taken into account with the town's recommendation. You've heard factual testimony from 23 experts at the Plan Commission meeting, at the Comprehensive Plan meeting. Facts are great, but consideration of the 5 senses of taste, smell, touch, sight, and hearing are critical here. Now I want you to smell a spring morning with the smell of cedar and pine. Most relaxing. Now I want you to smell the warm spring air as a septic truck goes by. Slightly different. At my house, only 2 tankers a day is what we expect from this operation, as stated by the developers. And I take their word for it. It's a 180-day season. That means 360 tankers are going to go by my house. I've never had sinus problems, and I don't want them. I can close my eyes, plug my ears, but I still need to breathe. Tonight, please listen. Vote your conscience and represent the people of Sevastopol. Keep in mind that a mama skunk thinks all her babies smell good. Tonight when you vote, use your 6th sense. It's called common sense. Show your true color and treat Sevastopol as the treasure it is. Thank you.
Next person, please. Such brevity I have never seen. All right, anyone else wishing to speak? Last call. Anyone? Please step up.
Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Grace Lindner. I am a lifelong resident and a lung cancer survivor. I also contend with chronic COPD. There was factual information regarding the distinct possibility that particles generated from the processing of limestone causes lung cancer and could negatively affect those with respiratory conditions. I can understand the developer's convenient exclusion of detailing that in the cup. Believe it or don't believe it, but to dismiss it with a statement that all construction has dust really is an affront to me and all lung cancer survivors. Please consider protecting your township residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, excuse me, Jeff Campbell, and I live down on Bay Shore Drive across the street from Westwood Shores. And we have a problem with the septic tank truck running 365 days a year from 9 o'clock in the morning until usually 3 o'clock in the afternoon They have to pump that tank out every single day. And every once in a while, we get a whiff, but I hear it. I mean, today I was outside working for a couple hours, and I got to listen to the drone of the septic tanker there every single day. On the other hand, I hate having anybody tell me what to do with my property. So I'm kind of torn. I'm still not exactly sure how I'm, exactly where I'm at with it. But there is, does go on. It's always there. I can hear it in my house. I can feel it at times. We got glasses too close when the truck's down there running, it rumbles. So I don't know what someone that has that's living right there, whether they'll be affected by it or not. But I certainly hope that, we seem to be being cautious in our decision with all this, and I hope that, vote your conscience on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Excuse me, that's not my name. Hi, my name's Pat Healy, and I live just off of Bayshore Drive. And all I wanted to say tonight is that my husband and I have a Class A RV, and the plans that this development made sounded lovely. It would be a great park to go into, but not on the top of the quarry. I just wish you guys would do that and bring yourself lots of business and prosperity, but it's just not a place for it. It's kind of a sacred, beautiful place that you can see from the water, you can see from the park, you can see every time you drive by it. And you know that environmentally, this is just not a good idea. So I hope that the development finds some wonderful place in Door County and can be very successful.
Thank you. Please feel free.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm Karen Zaran. My husband and I live on Bayshore Drive, just north of Little Harbor. We've been there since 2003, now full-time. Anyway, I was at the meeting the last time, and there were a lot of issues brought up. And one of them I didn't hear about was the air quality in this pit. Now, I've never walked into this pit, but a couple of the people that were in the back walked their dogs in there during the summer. And they say it's very warm. It's like a sauna in there. I thought, okay, if someone wants to spend that kind of money on these properties, I don't know if they would really enjoy living, in there without trees and vegetation, because that does reduce the temperature. So, that was one of my concerns that was not brought up at that meeting, the quality of the air. And being a pit, if air flows on top, it's not going to hit the pit. So that's what these people that walk their dogs go through there and say, it's pretty warm in the summer. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
My name is Marianne Ewig, and I reside at 6391 Little Harbor Drive. I've been here for well over 20 years, and I was also raised here in Sturgeon Bay. My concern is with water quality. Groundwater, surface water come together. I have a well, and I understand, having studied carefully karst topography, my well is 200 feet deep. That makes no difference with this karst topography that we have. I've tested twice for nitrates and once for arsenic. I'm down at the bottom of the bluff. My concern is once the blasting is done, once the infiltration has occurred within this topography, that water that's disturbed will find any method it can to get down low. And when it gets to our wells, we have a problem that cannot be corrected. And I don't want this beautiful area to have to start to use bottled water, which is what is happening in Kewaunee County. Thank you.
Anyone else? It's amazing, you're not all jumping up at once. Yeah, very much.
Hi, my name's Todd Smith, and I live on Windermere. I'm 71. They said it may take it could take up to 10 years. If the average age is maybe 80 for people, that's almost half my life right now. And I look at a lot of people in here, some of them are older than me, and they will have to put up with this, as well as some of the people here, for half their life maybe. And there's a lot of things that can happen in half my life that I have to deal with, and this is one of them. Another thing is, they did not mention that all those A1, Class A1 vans, or whatever you want to call them, can be used as an Airbnb, let alone the houses that they build, let alone the bedrooms that are in the house. And if you have one of those Class A1 RVs, there could be at least 2 or 3 bedrooms in those, and there could be 2 or 3 or 4 more families in there. So that's a fact. They don't even have to have someone build. You can just bring RVs in, or the A1s, and just park them there. And they showed that in the settlement that and that's a fact in Michigan, that some people just had a pad and they can have their RV. As far as taxes goes, they can just pull their RV in, pull their RV out. It's an automobile that goes in and out, and the taxes, I don't know if they're more or less that way. So there's an awful lot of things to think about. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, one more time. Anyone else wishing to speak on this topic before I close public participation? Second time, got him.
Hi, my name is Brad Birmingham. We have a business at 4709 Bayshore Drive, and I live at 4709 Bayshore Drive. Many people are opposed. Many people are in opposition to this. We see a lot of signs. I have a business. The business is would be impacted significantly with this project. I appreciate everybody being for or against. Everybody has an emotional opinion tied to this, which is fine. I just want to ask, how many family members have worked in the quarry? Can you raise your hand? Anybody that has been here that is a family member that has worked in the quarry?
Well,
The 2 of us.
that quarry?
That quarry, that particular quarry, the 2 of us. How many people have actually, well, we know the George Penny Park. Most of us have been in the George Penny Park. How many people have actually been inside the quarry project, what they're talking about, the quarry project? How many people have actually walked in that property? How many people have had permission to walk in that property?
I walked there 40 years ago when I walked.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that. When I was a kid, we used to go mini bike riding up there when Ash's had it, when Holmes had it, then it was sold to Dewey Concrete Company. It's been many things over the years. It's a blighted piece of property up on the top. Many people know that. To have something done with that would be very, very nice, whatever that project is. Whether it goes with this or goes with that. Some people have taken the opportunity here to present something in front of us. I think we should really take a look and see about having something done, whether it be that project, something else, or whatever. I appreciate their efforts. I know in the past they've talked about building a golf course up there. They've talked about having a water park up there. Those things have never come this far into fruition, but things have been brought forward in over the years. we will all go by there. It's our little area, and I just want to say, don't start fighting. I mean, it's okay. Everything is going to be okay. So whatever the project is, let's get along, and I don't think that the parent family built a nice park up in Egg Harbor up there many years ago. It's probably one of the largest developments in the area, for whatever that's worth. And it's very successful. It's got the largest septic system probably in the state of Wisconsin. It's these people probably know what they're doing. The engineers, the reports on both sides, everybody has an opinion, and I just appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last call, anyone else? Okay, we will close public participation and proceed with our meeting agenda. All right, thank you for those comments. All right, let's start with the agenda for tonight's meeting. Amy, I assume it was properly noticed?
The agenda has been properly noticed.
We would need a motion then to adopt the agenda, but with one exception, I'd like to move the Quarry LLC project to the top.
I'll move to adopt the agenda as noticed for this evening, January 20th, 2020, with deviation from the order shown.
We have a motion by Linda, second by?
I second that.
Second by Jim. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. With that, we're going to move directly into new business, which is the conditional use permit for the, I'm not going to go through all the various parcels, but we all know where it is. The Quarry Group located adjacent to...
Dan, we need to approve the minutes.
I can go back to that. That's fine. I'll back that back up. Request for establishment of a multiple occupancy development and campground land uses. And I will start with asking Linda for her comments as a result of the Plan Commission meeting from Tuesday evening, and then we'll proceed with that to the developer.
Well, I wish I had the recommendation form in front of me that we came up with.
I've got it. Wait one second.
Was it in the packet?
No, because we do that after the package.
Okay. I do have notes from that.
Sorry, if Jim's got it.
Yes, so after our 7-hour discussion, thank you.
Linda, would you satisfy yourself that's the right one? I think it is.
That's right. Our clerk did email it to me. I did not print it out. So following public input and the Plan Commission discussion after the applicants made their presentation, it was the Planning Commission's recommendation to the town board that we not support the request for a conditional use permit. And certain Plan Commission members brought forth the following issues. Inconsistency on property valuation. The surrounding parcels in the nearby area are single family. That the multiple occupancy development is not consistent with our town's comprehensive plan. There were questions on water, sanitary waste, the traffic study, pedestrian and bike, and also surface water runoff. Those were the main issues that were brought forth, although we did have discussion on blasting and odor, dust, noise control, etc. Is the proposal consistent with the town comprehensive plan? No. And concerns or objections that Plan Commission may wish to see potentially addressed through conditions, and those were crushing and blasting assurance and monitoring, groundwater monitoring and taking responsibility for negative effects, additional traffic studies, financial assurance, and operational rules and bylaws subject to approval of condominium associations, board, and accountability therefore. So that pretty much sums up what happened at the Plan Commission, if I'm incorrect in Mr. Nellen? You
I-
were there if I misstated anything, but
No, I didn't. You didn't. I think that there was a sense too that we might use this venue as an opportunity to discuss other conditions that might be reasonable to ask the RPC to consider in connection with their review of this project.
and I specifically want to thank our clerk, Amy Fluck, for taking the minutes that evening and coming up with this recommendation form with all of our concerns and issues. Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Okay, without further comment, let's give the developers an opportunity to talk regarding your conditional use request. Peter?
Thank you. Again, my name is Pete Hirth. I'm a professional engineer with Bodwin Surveying and Engineering. I live at 6361 Bluff Court Trail, which is about 2/3 of a mile from this project. So what I'm going to do tonight, between me and Mike and Tom, we should be able to get through in a half hour easily our rebuttal. We'll try to keep it brief. We're just going to try to hit the facts. I will lay it out to you, and I hope to sway a few votes here at the town board level. So item number 1, traffic study. There's a lot of discussion about the traffic study completed by Robert E. Lee.
Mr. Chairman, is it really, we intend to offer the applicant, that much time? I mean, we're going to be here, I think, for a very, very long period of time.
Under normal guidelines, I would give them the time to present their case. We are not going to go through, at least based on what Peter said, we're not going to go through an extensive presentation, so I will give them the...
I will go as
whatever.
quickly as I can. If you want to take one and pass it down, please. So Robert E. Lee did a follow-up analysis. I'll leave that study with you that I just handed out. What I'm going to try to do is go through real quickly, just to paraphrase, to save time. The projected volume of 2,770 vehicles per day, if they redid a new analysis, was still well below the capacity of the 2-lane highway. They went on to say summertime peaks are factored into the AADT determination. They said, for the sake of discussion, we estimate the summertime peak traffic will be 10% higher than the projected AADT. And assuming traffic in 2025 is 2,770 vehicles per day, from the discussion above, the summertime traffic would be about 3,050 vehicles per day, which is still well below the capacity of the 2-lane highway. There was discussion about if all vehicles go in one direction rather than splitting the traffic north or south. If all 330 projected vehicles go in the same direction. If we assume the summertime peak traffic on County B is 3,050 as discussed above, and Quarry Bluff adds 330 vehicles to the roadway all in one direction, it would have a total of 3,380 vehicles per day. At 3,380 vehicles per day, County B would still be well under the capacity of the 2-lane roadway. To summarize, we maintain that the traffic volumes discussed in our October 24th letter are still accurate. However, even if we make the above assumptions and the projected traffic volumes on B are exaggerated to 3,380 vehicles per day, the impact of the additional traffic generated by Quarry Bluff development is minimal to the traveling public, and that was prepared by Mark Schuster, PE, Transportation Engineer with Robert E. Lee. So that was a summary. Again, we talked about the capacity of the highway as constructed is somewhere between 12 and 15,000 vehicles per day. So, I understand the arguments from the neighborhood. I understand nobody wants increased traffic. But any kind of a sizable development, to have the opportunity to put it onto a road that actually has capacity rather than a quiet town road, it seems to make some sense. Item 2, legality. I have a 1-page letter from Grant Thomas that he prepared on December 26th, actually, when the opposition's attorney had filed a letter stating that it was an illegal submittal. Basically, I'm not going to try to interpret a lawyer's letter, but it said that it was done correctly, and it is legal for this to move through in the format that we provided. Geology, number 3. So I have a total of 13 items. I'm on number 3. Geology was a big topic of discussion. So a geology study will be required by the DNR before they issue our stormwater permit, our land disturbance permit, which includes stormwater review. That requirement was the first time we have ever had that required of us in Door County in the last 25 years doing this. So the safeguard of a geology study is certainly going to be done in order for us to obtain our DNR permit. So the DNR stormwater approval and a condition that this board may place on us to receive the stormwater approval will assure DNR satisfaction regarding the geology on the site. Item 4, holding tank, sewer, and water system and well concerns. A condition that all permits be in hand prior to construction would be appropriate to assure that all infrastructure meets current state code and obtain state approvals. There is testimony from a geologist representing the opposition that a well per lot would be better than two wells total proposed. While this would work if their concern is potential conduits to groundwater table, why drill 117 non-monitored conduits instead of the 2 monitored conduits, which will require extensive DNR testing? Item 5, pond liner. The proposed most restrictive 60 mil liner is more than adequate per previous testimony. I completed some additional research on the liner. The USDA Pond Sealing Code 512, Table 1, lists the 60 mil HDPE as a wastewater application, so it's suitable for raw sewage, with a 30 mil more typical for clear water, which I would argue this would be more typical of clear water than raw sewage. USDA Waste Storage Facility Code 313 suggests the Code 512 flexible membrane be followed, which I just explained above. For wastewater, again, we are proposing it for rainwater. A study by the Geosynthetic Institute regarding geomembrane lifetime prediction estimates that the life of an HDPE membrane to have a total predicted life of 446 years in this climate. Again, we're being subjected to the most stringent standards suitable for wastewater storage, and for what? To prevent the rain from soaking into the ground. Soil depths, item 6. There are questions regarding the soil depths once the project is complete. I completed a grid on the site today, looking at the proposed finished grading plan. And it turns out that we're going to have an average of 18 inches of material over the top of the existing bedrock, compared to basically 0 inches today. So that will allow growth, not only growth of vegetation, but it'll also allow the filter that we had talked about at the Plan Commission level to clear the water. Item 7, dust control, blasting, construction issues. All construction must follow OSHA MSHA regulations. Not much else we can do in that regard. It's the same as the blasting throughout the county. There's active quarries in the town. There's one on Walker Road. There's one on Matthew Road. We're proposing a defined window of construction to complete the project. Those quarries are ongoing. Ours will be just when we need to get the construction built. Blasting, road construction, driveway construction, and house construction has occurred on the escarpment in this area for over 25 years. In fact, all 3,000 feet of the extension of West Whitefish Bay Road and 2,900 feet of road for the Bluff Court Trail subdivision, which I live in, totaling 5,900 feet of road, was completed since 1992. If you look at the aerial photos from 1992, that entire top of Bluff was undeveloped. So since 1992, that extensive length of road, which is more than what we are proposing, almost every home along these roads required blasting for basements, blasting for septic tanks. We have roads, we have ditches, we have no conditional use permit was ever required for any of that construction. All the hard surface went in. There's not one stormwater management plan ever prepared for that entire thing. And here we are arguing about 50 acres and a type A liner that's made for wastewater, for rainwater. I live there. Is there problems with what happened on top of the bluff in my subdivision and West Whitefish Bay Road to the neighbors? I have not heard that. Have my property values gone down? No, absolutely not. Everybody who lives up there is hypocritical if they can sit here and say, I've got mine, you can't have yours. Personal opinion, not an engineering opinion. I had to go off there. Property values. It's completely possible that the temporary stigma caused by a negative campaign has scared buyers. I may have been scared too if I thought a trailer park, manufactured home, or a noisy campground is moving into the area. Hopefully, some of the video I showed from Petoskey eased some minds, and hopefully that this is a short-term stigma. Once our nice project is built, hopefully it does not impact neighborhood values. Comprehensive plan conformance. The town's comprehensive plan has not yet been submitted to the county. In fact, the first time I saw it was last week at the public hearing. I was able to find it on the town's website that it was adopted. There's no link to it. The county has not seen it. I talked to Mariah about that. So the county has not enacted that new comprehensive plan. The tricky thing is Peggy Dreitzer did not know about it. And we've taken a piece of property she's owned and pay taxes on, and we took it from potential for commercial development to putting a designation on it for a park or for open space. I don't think that's fair to Peggy not to be involved in that process. Community character issue, item 10. Act 67 specifically caused the county to eliminate this section from the RPC decision matrix. That said, we're still proposing the exact demographic that occupies seasonal homes in the area. It couldn't be a better match from a demographic standpoint. We're creating homes for vacationers just like the majority of the homes in the area. When compared to SF20 zoning, which is prevalent down the hill from our project, SF20 allows buildings to be put at 10-foot side yard setbacks. So you end up with 20 feet between buildings in often cases. We're proposing a 30-foot minimum with a 34-foot average between our houses in our development. Lot size. This was stated incorrectly multiple times by the opposition at the hearing. We recalculated all our lots. Our lots averaged 11,319 square feet per lot, not counting any of our open space. We reviewed the Petoskey lots. Petoskey, Michigan development has 7,212 square feet. So we're at 11,319, they're at 7,212. Ours are 57% larger. Impact to pedestrians was one of the hot topics. If you could pass that out. That's just an aerial photo. It basically shows that there's an established crosswalk leading from the east parking lot on the east side of Bayshore Drive across Bayshore Drive to Penny Park to the boat launch area. So if our residents would happen to come down the hill, I'm guessing they would walk down and use that crosswalk. The trail you can see at the top of the picture is the one that would go up to our pickleball court area. So it makes sense they would use that trail. Again, we're going to have around a mile of roads inside our subdivision. People would likely walk that loop rather than heading down to the Bayshore Drive. And finally, item 13, my last item, financial assurance. As we talked about, we feel it's not necessary due to no public financing going into this project. Turn it over to Mike. Thank you.
Peter, just let me ask you a quick question here. What are you two gentlemen going to do? Because I'm sure we have some questions, so I just want to know if you want us to go at the questions now.
Yeah, I just basically have a closing statement.
Okay, then if you don't mind, Peter, we'll just
No, that's great.
go on so we don't get it out of sequence. So I'll turn it over to the board and start with whatever questions you might have of Peter. And you look like you might have one, Linda.
Well, I too live right next door to Peter, so this is definitely in my neighborhood. The historic cliff faces are not changing with this development. Those cliff faces were actually man-made, as you all know. The view from Bayshore Drive on those cliffs, the historic cliffs, are not changing. The view from down below is not changing. Will the view from up top change? Absolutely. But that property has been zoned recreational for over 40 years. It hasn't been mined for 100 years. It's been sitting there. It's private property. If I were the owner of that property, something's going to happen to it sooner or later unless somebody purchases it and decides to just keep it as is. So it was quarried for nearly 100 years. It's sat stagnant for 40 years. It's zoned recreational commercial. Something's going to happen and something is going to change your view from the west end of Whitefish Bay Road. I do accept all of these reports as factual. I have nothing to argue against them, so all the expert traffic studies, the blasting impacts, Mr. Hirth is correct. 60% of all construction in Door County requires blasting. My house required blasting. So that's nothing new, and this process is so fine-tuned, and I did some checking. Wisconsin has one of the most stringent regulations and criteria when it comes to blasting in the nation. That's what I've been told. Like I said, it is zone recreational. I do have a problem with the density or the scale of the development. Now, maybe you have a price point that you have to work with, so that you came up with 117 or 115 lots are your price point. So my main objection is the density and the scale of the project. That obviously does not fit in with the character of the neighborhood of single-family homes. But we have two different zoning districts. We have a single-family zoning district right next to a recreational commercial district. So my biggest problem with the project is the density and scale and the seasonal and/or transitional nature of the development. So.
John, any comments?
Just, I don't think it fits with the,
Use the mic.
I don't think it fits with the rural character of the first comprehensive plan that we had in place. So, but other than that, no.
Okay. Mark?
I don't have any questions for Pete. I don't agree with the new study of the traffic, the 70 to 30 traffic split. I don't agree with that. It was stated Tuesday night, we know that most of the traffic goes north. Not everybody's gonna go to Sturgeon Bay from there. It says to from, yes, they will be coming from the south, there's easier access, I believe, to get there, but they will be going to the north. So I don't believe the 70-30% split, saying that it's gonna go to the south, 70%, 30 to the north. I believe that's more 60-40. The to from is kind of a hiccup in the wording, so I don't have any questions for you, but that's the one comment on the thing you just gave us this evening.
Jim?
Since this is, rather than just asking questions, more of an assessment, this is exactly the sort of thing that I think is deplorable. I think that the whole idea is not to take one another by surprise. The whole idea is to serve up an application, in my mind, and I could be wrong on this, and I read Grant Thomas's letter, and it's exactly what I would expect. He said this matter has got to go to the RPC, and it is up to the RPC to judge the merits of the application, and if the RPC deems the application is deficient, they can require additional information, and they will make legal determinations regarding presumably burdens of proof and so forth. I understand that. There's nothing new in there. But if you look at this and understand the impact this has had on our community, you would appreciate the fact that we had an awful lot of people who, although their concerns have been dismissed as being unsubstantiated opinion, in fact, they are nonetheless concerns. And they are concerns that deserve people's attention and not to be dismissed out of hand. I don't want to go back to last Tuesday and go through the entire process, but significant issues were raised, with several of them were salient issues, criteria that the county requires applicants to consider when seeking a conditional use permit. to submit something at the 11th hour and say, here, without giving anybody the opportunity of reviewing is just plain unfair. And what it does is it fosters ill will. It fosters uncertainty. It makes people believe that they can't trust anything that the applicants are proposing. My experience has been, and I do have considerable experience in this area, has been get in early, prepare your application, identify all of the issues so that there aren't any, and so that people can't pick and choose. That's the only way you'll satisfy people that in fact you've done your homework. I could go through and pick this apart. I choose not to. I don't want to spend 6 hours but because I know it's going to go to the RPC. But I think there is a fundamental misapprehension, unwillingness to accept the fact that people are concerned. And rather than trivialize those concerns, I think we would all be served by an earnest appraisal and consideration of what should be done. To begin with, a completed application, one that doesn't catch people at the 11th hour. Just my opinion, which is one of the reasons why it was a unanimous decision to reject. To a certain extent, you are the architect of your own misfortunes. So I would move to accept the recommendation from our Plan Commission to along the lines that had been previously identified by Supervisor Waite and seeking to have this denied by the RPC.
I think your motion's premature.
Well, I understand, but I also, but you understand, Mr. Chairman, it puts us in an unenviable position when we have to respond immediately without having the opportunity of reviewing. Not all reports are the same.
But I tend to disagree with your comment. But I will go back to the fact that there, as I mentioned the night of the Plan Commission, there are many other issues inside this document that we could focus on. And to pass back to the RPC a recommendation that says we are disallowing a recommendation because we believe your application, which your organization supplied us, is incomplete, would cause them to take the response that you might as well have passed on making a recommendation at all, or even going through this process. So I feel that there are issues out there that I'm concerned about, that are additional to yours, or maybe carry more or less weight, whatever the case might be, but and conditions that we need to make sure that we address prior to taking any action on this, in the event that we make a recommendation to the board, to the RPC, and they should overrule our recommendation. And this is the only opportunity that we have, right or wrong, to put those conditions in front of them and ask for them to honor those conditions in the event that they overrule whatever decision we come through. So that's why I say we're a little premature, I think, with the motion. I have some questions of my own that I haven't had a chance to voice, so that's why I stopped the conversation for a minute. And I do have some concerns. One I have, and Peter, is finances. And you answered it on Tuesday night by saying, the worst case scenario is if this doesn't work out, we'll have a nicely, I don't remember the exact words, but I would be concerned about that. I want to make sure that if something like that were to happen, not to happen, excuse me, is really what I want to say, that doesn't happen, that we don't have a development that goes halfway through and sales don't justify the end result and we have half of a development. I don't know how you I don't know how you work through that. I understand that there is a substantial investment up front in order for you to be able to create this. You can't blast for every sale you make, you can't blast another section of road or, utilities. But I have a concern that financially, if something goes awry, through no fault of your own, the community is left in limbo. And the second piece of that, especially the financial aspect, is if that does happen and the ownership reverts to those people that have it, do they change the rules or don't they? And inside of that next layer is this issue of rentals, VRBO, and Airbnb. I find that to be a huge pitfall in where we're going, and frankly scares the hell out of me. There was a conversation on Tuesday night with respect to I think Jim mentioned it. I think he was a little ahead of where we are as a town with respect to taking any action on those. But we're going to have to come to terms with that issue in the town at some point in time, and I certainly don't want to have to come back and address that issue if this becomes a reality. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the finances. I'm concerned that it isn't a perfect fit with our comprehensive plan. The comment about Peggy not knowing, I'm not sure I understood that. If that was your comment, you said that Peggy Dretzer did not know about the comp plan. I'd have to say, unfortunately for Peggy, I don't know how she missed it. I mean, it's been on the bulletin board, it's been in the news. I mean, we've, somehow or another, these people found out about it. I don't know how. Joking, but I mean, realistically, that comment's unfair. I'm sorry that she didn't get a chance. We would always prefer to have input from somebody ahead of time. I can't stand the after-the-fact commentary. I find it totally unacceptable. But those are a couple of my concerns. If you want to enlighten me a little bit further on those topics, I'd be fine, and maybe that generates some further conversation. But
Sure, and I'm not going to address the financial concerns. Maybe Mike or Tom can talk about the process moving forward. The Peggy comment, just being a landowner in Sevastopol, and all of us are. I sit here going through my rebuttal for today, and I think to myself, what if Linda and all my neighbors decided that, Pete can't put up an accessory building even though it's allowed by zoning? I would be very upset. I'd say, what are you doing? It's allowed by zoning. That's where I'm getting at. I think we're underestimating the importance that this piece of property is zoned RC. Peggy's been looking at this for 20 years. Can I put a big landmark type building on there? Does it make sense? Figured out she didn't want to do that, probably because she didn't want to spend $20 million to put up a landmark building. She came to me and said, what can I do? I can't just let this 50 acres sit here. We've got to do something. We've looked at so many different options on this piece of property. These guys here, going through this process, one of the first questions you always ask is, which uses need a conditional use permit, which uses do not? We can do a lot of land division stuff there without going through the conditional use process. And these guys might lay awake at night thinking they're nuts for being here, and I get that. This is a lot of pressure for everybody. But they chose this project based on what they really think is a winner, and it fits the zoning. There's very few places in the county where we can take this project and say, let's plunk it here. It's got to have this RC zoning. So the zoning, in essence, the zoning requires us to, if your dream is to build a motor coach facility in Door County, first of all, there's nowhere you're going to go where you're not going to have opposition. I've worked for many developers. It's very rare that I walk into a town plan commission and I'm not the only guy in favor of it. Whether it's here, down in the Milwaukee area, everybody's against everything. I understand that. That's the nature of the beast. Nobody likes change. Like I talked about in my testimony, if it was up to the general public, there wouldn't be a Target store. Instead, to make his Target's terrible and it's going to go bankrupt, and I can't believe you're paving a parking lot where there's it's just everything. So I guess where I'm going is the zoning is a big deal. If if it was zoned residential and I'm trying to get it rezoned to commercial and I want to do this, you have every right to say, no, it's zoned residential, you got to do residential use, SF20 or small estate, but it is zoned recreation commercial, it's been that way forever. So, you know, that's the sticking point is, if you look through the zoning code and you say, this is how you get to this project and this is where it's got to go, and then to have the general public say, I don't like it, let's not do it, let's fight it, I get it, it happens in every project. But in this case, I think the zoning is very important, I think that might be overlooked.
Okay.
Well, let me,
Go ahead.
I do agree that we need to discuss that in addition, obviously, to the decision whether to recommend denial or acceptance. I mean, it's pretty clear which way I come down on it. I do think it's important to talk about the conditions. I think you're right. I think that there are considerable issues with regard to the blasting because the amount of blasting. And there was a comment made last Tuesday by one of the applicants to the effect that, well, they told their apparently one of their contractors, you know, you got to do it right because, you know, you're on the line. Well, besides the fact that that really doesn't, that's I think a misapprehension of what negligence law is in the state of Wisconsin. It also underscores the fact that if you're as the owner, and I'm assuming for purposes you're the owner, you're going to ask your sub to indemnify you against any negligence he created. We need two things. We need a performance bond so that your sub carries out his responsibilities as he's required to do and that he not be delayed. But in addition, we should get, because of the potential for damage to those homes above the rim, there's no reason we shouldn't get a certificate of insurance indicating that there's a sufficient amount of money to pay any damages that may come. And it needs to be issued by a legitimate insurance company. Could be in the neighborhood of $2, $3, $4, $5 million. You need that because if something happens and those homeowners above the quarry experience damage, the foundation cracks, it doesn't do them much good to go against a contractor that's 2 trucks and a guy who disappears. Okay, he needs some. Not suggesting that he doesn't have to demonstrate that the damage to his property resulted from the blasting. He's got to do that, but he also ought to have the comfort of knowing that there's an insurance company that's going to stand behind him, and if there's a $300,000 damage to his house, that he's going to get paid $300,000. I also agree with the chair. I think that we should look at prohibiting short-term rentals. And the evidence, at least the testimony last Tuesday was, everyone's there for a week. It doesn't matter, they're at least for a week. So the fact that we want to prohibit short-term rentals of 6 nights or more or less, that shouldn't be a problem because of the concession that's already been made. I think that with regard to air issues, and I understand that, and this is a very, very important issue, at least based on the reaction I get from people. People are worried about the amount of silica that's going to be put in the air as a result of the blasting. And there is some significant question whether or not that has either immediate or long-term consequences. There's no reason why, given the amount of study that has occurred regarding blasting of this kind of rock, there's no reason we shouldn't expect you all to prepare a study. Go out and get someone to give a study indicating that based on what you're going to do, the blasting you're going to undertake, it does not constitute a danger to the residents. You would want to do that anyway. Or do you want people to sit there and worry themselves sick that because they're being exposed to all of the dust created by this blasting, and this isn't just a single basement, this is talked about the amount of blasting that's going to occur. I think they ought to have the comfort that the activities that are being undertaken will not constitute a danger to them. Why not? The information is there, just gather it. This is, and I come back to this point which I made before. This is a very, very, this is a significant project. You guys, the cash flows are going to be in the millions, which is fine. You've advertised the fact that there's going to be a $40 million increase in the assessed, in the cumulative assessed valuation of value of the town. I don't necessarily agree, because it's never been explained to me exactly how you get to that 40 million, except you surveyed houses next to you and you're next to the project, and you said, well, they have an average assessed valuation of $500,000 and you're going to build 80 of them, so it's $40 million. I'm sorry, I think I'm not sure that's a particularly scientific way to get to it, but it does underscore the fact that you want to build 100 homes of between 1,200 and 2,400 square feet, say 2,000. That's $500,000, at $250 a square. You've got great ambitions in all these areas. You're going to, the cash flows are going to be $40, $50, $60 million. That's not building a home. That's building one of the largest complexes we will probably ever see in this county. So it's incumbent, I think, on you to look at this as being a very big development and go as far as you can to put people at ease. We've talked about, just go back, the effect on housing values. Of course people are concerned about their housing values. Why wouldn't they? I mean, for most people, this is their major asset. Why not give them comfort? It doesn't do any good if the comfort you're going to give them is a survey of realtors located in Petoskey, Michigan, who will tell you that there was no adverse impact on surrounding homes because of the fact that the whole area is zoned light industrial. And as you go outside, as I understand it, there's an RV dealer, there's a diesel mechanic dealer, there's a metalworking shop. There's nothing about that would give these people, give residents of this town the requisite comfort that they're not going to see a significant drop in their housing values. I think that's why I stress that the application doesn't give people enough information to quiet their concerns. And I think given the size of this, you owe it to them to give them that comfort.
A couple of real quick things. So one of the planning questions I always run into, no matter where I am, is if it's truly that Door County is being promoted for additional tourism, which we have a tourism commission in this county who is promoting more tourism in Door County. So that seems to contradict the mass public who says, I'm here, I don't want any more people. Let's assume that 117 people who can afford a vacation home in Door County start looking today and say, God darn it, I'm buying myself a vacation home in Door County. Let's say that demand is there. The train of thought on what we're doing and what conservation subdivisions do is you'd rather have 117 people on 50 acres than have 117 people eat up the entire shoreline from here to Ephraim. That's the debate in land use. Do you do a conservation subdivision where you can set aside some land and you can make smaller lots and you can get all these people in one spot? Or do you eat up all your agriculture? Do you eat up all your shoreline? Do you eat up the whole county because 117 more people want to come here? Do you have 117 more driveways on Bayshore Drive instead? So there's an argument both ways there. And I know this crowd doesn't care and they think that this is a terrible idea. I understand that. But from a planning perspective, that's why most Richfield, Germantown, Cedarburg, Saukville, Port Washington, they only will let you do a conservation subdivision because they want less farmland eaten up. That's the whole goal. They don't want people buying 5 acres, chewing up every farm, and it's all gone. So that's the flip side of some of that argument. You don't have to agree with it. I'm just explaining the rationale there. As far as Petoskey, I went there, I walked around in there, I drove my motorcycle through there, I took video, we all saw the video. I left there saying that this is a very upscale, nice residential development. I didn't leave there saying, oh my God, I don't want this 2/3 of a mile from my house. It's opinion. I thought it was great. I might be in the minority, I understand that, but if you haven't gone into that development in Petoskey, walked around and checked it out, I think you've been painted the wrong picture. It was very upscale, very nice, very well landscaped. It certainly wasn't in fitting with industrial. It was a residential vacation home community. So a lot of this, we're beating around opinions on what you like, what I like. You know, I had a guy do some condos on the bluff in Ellison Bay 20 years ago. They had aesthetics professors from out east come over and say that that was the 7th wonder of the world and there's no view better than that, and that's a fact, you know. And then the next person stood up and said, I'd rather be in downtown Chicago where I see all this beautiful architecture. Well, it's opinion. You know, and that's the thing we struggle with in this profession all the time is nobody wants it, but I'm guessing 117 people are going to think this is awesome. They're going to come to Door County, they're going to spend their money, and I don't know. I'm getting opinionated now instead of factual.
Okay. So you have closing comments that you'd like to make before we move on here?
Yeah. Well, one thing I do want to make a comment.
Would you either step up or grab the mic, your choice?
Again, my name is Mike Parent, living in Ephraim right now. I do want to make one comment on Act 67 and how it does apply to the town. We have a Wisconsin Legislative Council Act memo here, 2017 Wisconsin Act 67, Assembly Bill 479. The act requires a city, village, town, or county to grant a conditional use permit if an applicant meets or agrees to meet all of the requirements and conditions specified in the relevant ordinance or imposed by the relevant zoning board. So there is some responsibility here to actually look at this from an objective standpoint and not a popularity contest. I'd like to read a prepared statement I do have. My partners and I were disappointed in the outcome of the planning committee meeting on Tuesday evening, both by the decision to deny our application as well as the manner in which the decision was reached. The motion to deny was based on the premise that our application was incomplete. We believe that not only was the decision reached in error, it was reached in a predetermined and biased fashion. Mr. Jim Nellen was by far the most vocal and outspoken member of the committee during the meeting. It was obvious from the start of the evening that it was his mission to make sure this application request did not get approval. He led the charge in attempting to convince the other committee members and the audience that our application was not complete. Simply because we did not yet have state and county approved plans in the areas of sanitary stormwater runoff water system. This shows an incredible misunderstanding of the very nature and purpose of the meeting, as well as the town's role in assessing our application request. This, by and large, is simply a zoning issue. Our proposed project is a permitted use on the subject property, providing we meet or agree to meet certain restrictions put on the property by the specific agencies of jurisdiction. Nowhere in the conditional use permit application procedures or the protocols of the meeting that review them allow for the denial of the application simply because these permits have not yet been sought or approved. In fact, Act 67 was passed by the state of Wisconsin in 2017 specifically to clarify the role of the local and county governments in evaluating this very type of application. The law states the reviewing governmental bodies must approve the request if the applicant meets or agrees to meet all conditions placed on the project. Approved permits are required to be in place before the project may commence, and they must be followed during construction and throughout the project, or the permit will be rescinded by those same governing agencies, including the Door County Planning Department. As a reminder to the Sevastopol Town Board, the procedures and language laid out in Act 67 does apply at the town level. Act 67 also requires that the applicant and those who are in opposition must, where possible, present data that is quantifiable and backed by engineering, scientific, expert testimony. And while no one can accurately predict all the effects of any specific project, we did our due diligence in this area and brought information from many expert sources, including traffic study, blasting expert, real estate valuation experts, product manufacturers' information. Rounding out our submissions will include the approved permits from government agencies, the accepted experts in their respective fields, which will be required to follow. In contrast, a majority of the arguments brought by the opposition were the same subjective arguments made by those in opposition to nearly every project ever built in Door County. It's too big, it doesn't fit the surrounding area, it's ugly, I don't want it in my backyard. Many of the mathematical arguments were absurd, including one by a gentleman who offers boat tours of the bay who claimed that his business will suffer a 50% loss if his project is approved. A quick look at his website that highlights the areas of his tours doesn't even include the quarry area, and even if it did, it's hard to fathom how his business would drop by 50%. This is not what Act 67 had in mind when requiring quantifiable figures, and in fact are the kinds of statements that are to be ignored when evaluating the application. Another statement was made that each motor coach will house 12 occupants for the entire season, calculating out to 1,404 additional residents. Really, that type of ridiculous subjective statement needs no response. Other points of opposition surfaced when we were discussing the fact that our stormwater runoff pond would utilize a large retention pond that will be lined with a 60 mil liner. An audience member offered up a simplistic observation parroted by Mr. Nellen that all liners leak. Brash statements like this have no place in discussion, and if the DNR requires this type of liner, we are in agreement. In the unlikely event of a liner leak, the only thing getting through is rainwater. This is not a Green Bay paper mill where toxic PCPs will be released into the local rivers. Again, it's rainwater. Where exactly does the rainwater go now? Our project will create acres and acres of lawn and natural areas where rainwater has the opportunity to be filtered as it is absorbed into the ground, unlike the current rock surface. It became painfully clear by the end of the meeting that we were not going to get a fair hearing in this forum, especially when Mr. Nellen pulled from his binder a pre-written motion to deny our request. It was troubling the next morning when we discovered on the website of the Bayshore Property Owners Association that he serves as the vice chair of the board of directors from that organization. The very group that has raised tens of thousands of dollars to be spent in opposition of our project. While he has every right to associate with whom he pleases and to harbor a negative bias towards our application, he should have had the integrity to publicly announce the fact and provide a testimony in opposition from the other side of the table. As we move ahead, we are expecting a more diligent and comprehensive review of the facts in our meeting with the Resource Planning Committee in a few weeks. We're confident they will have a better understanding of the requirements of Act 67 as well as the conditional use process and the role they play in applying rules, regulations, and law. One final note. To the property residents of town of Sevastopol, the zoning of your property and value of your property in the town means nothing if decisions are based on a group of outspoken people who decide to oppose your legal right to property. County zoning, DNR, DSPS rules dictate setback to lot lines, roads, and shoreline, sizes and heights of dwellings, impervious ratios, sanitary requirements, and required well casing. Public opinion should not dictate the height or location of your house. Zoning should. Bottom line, we are proposing a use that is permitted through a conditional use permit. We have completed what the county calls the most complete application they have ever seen. Our engineers has addressed any outstanding questions through his rebuttal. We are willing to accept any reasonable conditions. Please do what's right, legal, and pass this on to the RPC with the town's favorable recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I,
Just 1 minute, please. I would like to just make a couple quick comments and then someone else. With respect to Act 67, I think there's one key piece in here, which is the Town Plan Commission is not a quasi-judicial group. All right, there's a little bit of a distinction there in that we are recommenders, we are not decision makers, and as a result, we have a degree of latitude that the RPC does not have because they are a judicial review panel, and they make the decision. So we are cut a little bit of slack in terms of that, and I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. Okay. You have a comment?
I do. The chair and I talked about the possibility that someone may perceive a conflict some time ago when this issue first raised. And I spoke to outside counsel and asked them, a fellow who's conversant in municipal law, and asked for an opinion as to whether or not my involvement in this constitutes a conflict, and he informed me that it did not. And the reason is essentially what the chair said. We do not stand, this is not a adjudicative process. This is we're being asked, both the Plan Commission as well as the board, to make a recommendation to the RPC. The RPC has the responsibility, will render a binding quasi-judicial decision on the CUP. I think that for the suggestion is that I am conflicted, and so consequently I shouldn't vote. I think that's preposterous. The State Ethics Board has issued an opinion regarding this, and I asked my counsel, I said, take a look at judicial decisions, opinions of the Attorney General, as well as what the State Ethics Board says. And they offered guidance that says an official may participate in an action affecting an organization, in this case, the Bay Shore Property Owners Association, which, let me make you an aside. Anybody can belong to the Bay Shore Property Owners Association that wants to pay $15. It's to suggest that it's some sort of secretive organization that is a little ironic. But there's an action that affects an organization in the interest of the Bay Shore Property Owners Association. It doesn't matter a whit, because I don't derive any special benefit from whatever happens. I don't benefit economically. I don't benefit in any particular fashion, other than I'm part of a very large group that that is interested in the well-being of the county. One other thing I want to say. When I ran for this position, which was 2 years ago, I declared to the world that I was a member of the Bay Shore Property Owners Association. It is in my brochure. And I knocked on over 500 doors and gave that brochure to anybody and everyone. If they were sensate, they were going to get a copy of the brochure. And the brochure said two things that I think are relevant today. One is, I acknowledged that I'm a member of the Bay Shore Property Owners Association, and I said my principal concern is in connection with the development of the next town comprehensive plan that was going to be shortly underway, that I wanted to continue I wanted that plan to continue to articulate the principle that the town, we should maintain the pastoral, rural quality of the town. So I have never hid from the world my views. I talk to certain people in the township who have been involved in environmental issues in this town for 50 years, and the question they put to me is, do you understand how delicate, how fragile the groundwater is in Door County? Do you really understand? Do you understand the whole issue of karst topography? Do you understand the extent to which we're paying the penalty of 50 years of ignoring with the impact of groundwater? And I do understand, and I appreciate it. And I don't want to make the same mistake now and I don't want it to be my legacy to this county that I was part and parcel of something that created another 50 years of ill will, of contamination. And then, just finally, the State Supreme Court said in Quinn v. Town of Dodgeville that elected by the residents of the town board operates with its mandate to preserve and protect the best interests of its constituents. The applicants may disagree with my conclusions, You may disagree with my characterization of the materials you provided as being insufficient. You may disagree with my view as to what the burden of proof should be. But nowhere is there a basis for you to disparage my commitment to act in what I believe is in the best interests of the residents of this town. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. If you have a comment, anyone else on the board have a comment, I'm glad to entertain those. Linda, go ahead.
First of all, our updated comprehensive plan, that parcel is, in our mind, 20-year land use plan, that parcel is designated in our plan, not the county's plan, as park/recreational. So just want to clarify that. It doesn't say just park, it's park/recreation. When these conditional use permit applications come either to the Plan Commission or to the Town Board, the first thing I do is I look at the application, and the second thing I do is I look at the draft staff report that comes from Land Use Services. The draft staff report says, in summary, the proposed multiple occupancy development and campground land uses for this development, this Quarry Bluff LLC, comply with all applicable requirements of the Door County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. And in order to comply with that ordinance, they also must meet all state, federal, and local requirements. That would be sanitary waste, water supplies, solid waste disposal, noise, odor, dust, vegetation, surface water, whatever. So in order to comply with the Door County zoning ordinance, the applicant needs to comply with all of those. I'm just pointing that out. Also, if this had been an active quarry in up to 1999, you would have had to have a reclamation plan, and that reclamation plan would have insisted you replace topsoil. It would have said you must have ponds, either for retention ponds or recreational ponds. And it also would ask you to replace the vegetation and probably recommend a conservation subdivision along the lines that Mr. Hirth suggested. So just for your information, if there was a reclamation plan on file, this quarry would need to be restored to a usable purpose. Again, I do have a problem with the density and scale of this project. And when it comes to financial assurance, as our chairman had mentioned, that, excuse me, that could be a condition in our recommendation form, that if this project is approved by the RPC and goes forward, that one of the conditions would be that if it doesn't go through, we have a reclamation for it, you know, or we insist upon making it usable. So
Other comments? Mark, anything?
I think it's been said over and over, most of my thoughts. I agree with Pat Healy and with Brad Birmingham. Pat said that it would be a great thing for Door County. But I don't agree with where it goes. None of us, even no matter what the DNR, whatever the people say, all the findings, we don't know what's gonna happen when they start rock sawing, blasting, drilling into that rock. I think it's a great idea, I really do. I just don't think that's the proper place for it. And I know Peter said that this is about the only place in Door County that would fit. It's too bad, and as Linda said, if we can scale it down, find another place, but I just don't believe it's a right place on top of that rock, because none of us know what's gonna happen when we start blasting and rock sawing and drilling into that rock.
John, anything?
No, you hashed it over enough.
So, I think we probably hashed this out quite a bit.
I have a couple things I would like to address.
Pardon me?
I have a couple things I'd like to address, if I could.
I think at this point in time, we're past that. I'm sorry.
We are?
Yeah. We're done. We've given you the opportunity to make your comments, and now we are amongst the board discussing what we're gonna do. I'm sorry if you misunderstood that. I said we are done with the developer's presentation. When Mike did his summary, I closed that section, and now we are talking about what we as a town board are gonna do. I'm sorry if you misunderstood that, but that's the process. So, just as I did with public comment, and we did with you, I'm not trying to shortchange you, but that's
Not resolved.
we're in a board discussion at this point in time. So,
Would it be appropriate to offer a motion?
yeah, I think that maybe before we do that, we should probably at least delineate a few conditions and then go from there so that we've captured the concerns that somebody might have in the event that there's something happens that is above and beyond.
We're addressing concerns or objections the town may wish to see.
Yes. So, I mean, I think we have a number, I think we have a number of things that if the RPC decides to move, do whatever, sorry, we're gonna buy all new microphones, but it'll come with a tax increase. But don't let that get you down. At any rate, we're talking about concerns or objections that the town may wish to potentially be addressed through conditions if in fact the RPC were to do this. They take a look at the document and they say, what things would the town like to see addressed? Okay.
That's Jim's.
Oh, sorry, Jim, this is yours. All right, so we had a list that we had started.
I can,
Why don't we just work, you want to start?
I could read those off and then you can agree or disagree.
Sure, sounds like a plan.
So from the Plan Commission standpoint, we would like to see crushing and blasting assurance and monitoring. We would like to see groundwater monitoring. Additional traffic studies was one suggestion. Financial assurance, and then if we can elaborate on that, financial assurance / reclamation plan or something along those lines.
I think we're almost talking about some commitment of funds in the event that this
Maybe
doesn't
that's financial
make-
assurance, I guess.
Okay.
The other one was operational rule and bylaws, but I don't agree with that one. Some of the other ones we talked about were the view from above to that you're required to vegetate, but one of the comments was to protect the view from above to maybe request canopy trees. That would sort of improve the view from up above. No swimming or wood fires, but I believe that's all covered in the application.
On the bylaws, Linda, what, you mentioned
Well,
are we
like I
talking
said,
about the
some
bylaws?
of, not all of the Plan Commission members were on board with this, but some of them brought up the bylaws of the association, I guess, were in question. Correct?
Inside the bylaws was the short-term rental, VRBO,
Right.
Airbnb.
But I support those bylaws because that would be more stringent than what's currently going on in single-family zoning where anybody and everybody is allowed to rent their room or
But-
house, so.
Could that be a condition that we could attach to the property versus attach to their bylaws? Because the issue I have is if the bylaws change with the development in the event that it doesn't make it all the way, are we going to be faced? So,
I'm not sure it would stand because right now we cannot regulate.
well, we could.
We can regulate to a point of maybe laying down some additional restrictions, but you cannot say no to anybody who wants to short-term rent their home or room or cabin or whatever.
Well, we're fully within our rights according to the state statute. There's a carve-out that we can prohibit short-term rentals of 6 nights or fewer.
Right.
Okay. Well, and plus, this would be private property, so you could initiate any rules you wish, right? Which I think you have them covered in your proposal.
And again, any rentals flow through the front desk. This isn't something where you can get on the internet and do an Airbnb or anything like that. That flows right through the front desk, like a hotel, no different than any hotel.
Right.
This isn't even, there's no Airbnb about this.
Right. Well, and you also had maximum number of occupants. You had no pets.
Right.
You had hours of recreation time, so.
But that's one of the issues we've been talking about, is the fact that it is a hotel. I mean, it's supposed to be this is supposed to be a single-family development.
But the point
now
being that everything.
Excuse me. Now, this is one of the issues we've been dealing with short-term rentals. I think a flat-out prohibition. We have been told last Tuesday, people, when they rent for a week, if not longer. It seems to me that a prohibition against short-term rentals of 6 nights or fewer that goes with the property is not asking for too much.
All right.
Okay?
I don't think it will stand because you're being selective.
Why?
Because everybody else doesn't have that
There's
restriction right
probably
now.
3/4 of people in this room that aren't gonna agree to that because they do that same thing right now.
I understand that.
So why limit their property to that if everybody else is doing it? That's not fair.
Part of it is because of the increased traffic flow. I think that's part of it. But remember, we have 75 people in the county, in the town, that have their homes, because I'm on the Tourism Zone Commission, 75 people, roughly. That
are on the list.
They're on the list. Most of them, but the majority of the rooms are the condo hotels. Okay. But I just think that taking what the applicants say, taking them literally at their word, they say it's not going to be a problem to prohibit rentals of 6 days or fewer. I mean, if that's an agreement in connection with approving this project, no one really can complain about it unless
I think we can put it in there, and if it can't be enforced, it can't be enforced.
Well, we
If
could
the
just say
RPC
regulation of short-term rentals.
Regulation of short-term rentals, and I think.
6 days or fewer. Yeah.
Is 6 days or fewer. And then I think also to the point that we had talked about some coverage in the event that there was some damage done through the blasting efforts, or, and I don't, I'm not an insurance guy, so I don't know what can be done, but there ought to be some.
What you do,
Some
Dan, is-
coverage to.
What you do is if you have your contractors and you ask them to provide you with a certificate of insurance, and they go to their broker, and the broker gives you a single piece of paper that says there's in effect insurance of, and they indicate the policy limits, $5 million. And then they have to, and we don't have to get into all of it, but the idea is they have currently and in force during the entire construction project a certificate of insurance in the amount of, I would say, $5 million for all of the contractors that would make that $5 million available in the event that someone's house is damaged. It provides a pot of money. Now, they still have to prove it. Someone
Right.
can't say, but, so $5 million, it's fair. In addition, it's often the case that as an owner, you guys decide what you want, but as an owner, you oftentimes ask for a performance bond. And that's because if your contractor defaults on you and delays the project by 6 months, there are big-time consequences that flow from that. But I think that to protect the homeowners, you at a minimum want a certificate of insurance.
Can I ask Peter a real quick question on that? Don't most blasters already have, I mean, the contractors work, I mean, we're kind of getting off subject, in my opinion, because we're talking about building, we're talking about working, I mean, that stuff, that's all taken care of. The DNR regulates this, the zoning, everything, I mean, that's taken care of already. I mean, that's kind of not, in my opinion, part of this conditional use permit, because I was a contractor for 20-plus years, self-employed, now I'm in the trades. We need all that stuff. I had to have all that insurance. So don't the blasters there kind of have that covered?
I can address that. Anybody that sets foot on our site is a contractor. Anybody that sets foot on our site is a contractor. We will have a copy of their insurance on file and make sure that the limits are where they need to be respective to how bad a damage they could do. When it comes to blasting, to put this people at ease or to make people understand how this works, what they typically do is they will knock on your door and ask ask your permission to come in and photograph with all of your basement foundation walls, things like that, inside and out. They put a seismograph on your porch to make sure, and that's all done. The blasting takes place. If there's a problem, the people have the blasters' phone numbers, their business cards. They call them up and say, look, this crack was not here before. You got it on film. It's not there. Now it is. That's a problem.
They have to cover their backside.
That's
This is their living. This is their livelihood.
This is what they do. You know,
Exactly.
blasting, I mean, all the sewers up north were blasted right down the main drag, and all the laterals were blasted straight into the houses. It's not uncommon to blast 10 feet from a building. They can control it, that well. And then the rest they just do with a jackhammer. But, I mean, this is not anything new. The people who work in that environment all the time never even wear masks, hardly, I shouldn't say never, but you don't see, guys do it without masks, they do it their whole lives, they do it for many years. I'm getting a little carried away on this one.
I can confirm that.
Remy?
I can confirm that because I did have a discussion with Mr. Paschke, and he said that their normal procedure is going 300 feet from the blasting area. If you wanted to increase that to 600 feet, they'll work with whatever you want.
Sure.
But just like Mr. Getz indicated, they will come, they will photograph, document.
That's how it's done.
Yep.
And let me ask a follow-up question, and in the event that there was some catastrophic, who knows what kind of insurance do these individuals carry? Is it adequate to deal with that type of issue? I understand the come and fix the crack or this broke or what, I don't have an issue with that, but if there's something
If the whole house collapsed and slid down the bluff, basically is what we're saying?
Yeah.
Again, I mean, what would the most expensive home up there cost to replace? I don't know, maybe $1 million? I don't know that it would be much more than that. These guys are gonna carry more insurance than that. There's no question about that. It'll be more than sufficient to replace anything up there.
I guess he decided you were done.
I guess so.
Well, no, I just.
It's all right, Mike.
We
Feel
were in
free
the
to
blasting
take it.
business for probably 30 years, and the insurance definitely would be covering, there'd be an umbrella policy, and it would be several $1 million at a minimum. The one thing I wanted to make a point was, again, the red line that was provided by at the county level for their comprehensive plan, they did actually redline out financial assurance would be expected as one of the requirements here. So again, that was removed from the county level of asking for any type of financial surety above and beyond what the contractor would have with the developer on the project itself.
So, anything else, Linda, that you'd like, or anyone else that we can move ahead here?
I do.
Those were the only notes that I have.
I would put in something about, I do think this issue of dust has concerned people. And I think that having some definitive, something definitive to put people at ease that their health and their health is not put at issue, I think would be I think it would serve a very useful purpose.
I don't know how you can do that.
I don't know either.
The only way you can do it is if you guys get up and fold your books and not do it at all. I mean, that's the only way you're gonna make.
No,
people-
there's rules and regulations
I mean-
that the blasters, the crushers are all gonna have to monitor the amount of dust in the air, the fugitive dust and the other dust that's generated. And that's part of MSHA, OSHA, DNR. They have to monitor that. You talk to any crushing company, they'll have, filtering systems on their loaders. They'll have respirator types that they're using. So that's something that's out of, not our responsibility as developer, but anybody who's hired to do that. They're gonna do a spot check and see if they're monitoring, if these, whatever the limits are being monitored. It's not something that just gonna let them go.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, because I think we have people like Northeast Asphalt running active quarries in our town, and somebody who's on this town board lived in a quarry, literally, as she grew up. Will remain nameless, but seems to be a large quarry in her home area. All right, so given this, we've got a few things here that we will talk to, and good news or bad news, I'm sure one or the other or more of us will end up going to the RPC hearing as well to communicate this information as best we can. So unless there's any comments any further, I would suggest that we move on, and the motion would be in order to decide where we're gonna go with this.
Well, I move, I would ask the board to consider a motion to adopt the recommendation from the Plan Commission and make it the recommendation of the Board of Supervisors to be forwarded on to the RPC.
Okay, I have a motion from Jim and a second from anyone.
So that is a negative recommendation?
How did you capture that, Amy?
Deny.
It was a recommendation to deny the conditional use.
Okay. Recommendation to deny.
That with the conditions that we put in.
Yes. As much as the RPC will carry them forward. I'm sorry, did you say you did second that motion or not?
I'll second the motion.
A motion by Jim, a second by Linda, to make a recommendation to the RPC to not support the conditional use. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Are we gonna address this or not, the reasons for the town's decision?
Yeah, we'll work through that with We will take a 5-minute break so that those of you who have an urge to go to the saloon may. Okay, all right. We're back live here. We'll continue the meeting. We want to spend a couple minutes just wrapping up the Door County Planning Department's request for a town recommendation. Linda has penciled in a few of the reasons for the worksheet. Linda, you want to read them? If someone has issue, please speak up. If not, we're going to finalize this and move on to the rest of our meeting.
Okay, reason for the town's decision.
Mic down, please.
Reasons for the town's decision, that it does not match up with the town's comprehensive plan. Questions with well water / water runoff. Financial assurance / viability / restoration to a usable use if the project should fail. I don't know if we want to put that in there. Maybe just leave that failing part out. That it is not similar to other uses in the area. Let's see.
The traffic study, I think that.
Well,
No, I think we're in disagreement on the traffic.
I think we are
study.
too.
I think that they frankly proved their point. We may not like the traffic, but Even if you quadruple the traffic and say it's 6,000 cars a day, the road's designed for 12, that's a tough one.
See, I don't know if, that's one of my problems, is I'm not sure it is designed for 12. I know what they say, they talk about Wisconsin rural highways, but I'm not sure this is built according to the Wisconsin rural highways. I think there's an open issue, is what I'm saying. And I think that there's no reason, they've already had to go back and repair the traffic study once because it was insufficient. I mean, they were flat out wrong in what they said earlier. So my view is well, you know, we ought to leave that an open issue. It's an issue regarding the accuracy of the traffic study. That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
Okay?
so maybe feel that we need them to revisit this issue one more time.
Revisit traffic?
Study.
I mean, the key thing here, though, Jim, is that we're not the experts, but when it turns to the RPC, that's their job. So, they're the ones that have to hassle through these things, and if they determine it's 12,000 a day, then the traffic study is, you know, accurate, and that's their determination. We
So-
fortunately don't have to make that determination.
As a democracy, 1 out of 5 want it on the, do we put it on?
Well, we
For the
put it
traffic?
on
I mean,
only,
kind of,
if you feel strongly against it, we don't have to.
I do not feel strongly against it personally.
Okay.
I think there's part of the
matter.
underlying feeling is that.
The RPC is gonna do what they want anyhow.
Well, that's
Yeah, but I
partial.
think we can direct them as to what are special concerns. I mean, that's why we say the reasons why.
Quantify the traffic study.
Okay.
It just doesn't seem to be,
Fine, I'm okay with it.
that's fine, okay? Anything additional?
No.
Okay. You good, Linda?
And then, is the proposal consistent with the town's comprehensive plan? I think we all agree that it does not match up.
Correct.
That's right.
And we'll have to revisit the conversation that Peter had with respect to the town, the county not having our latest comprehensive plan.
Well,
Well, I
we've
know
had a
that-
comprehensive plan in place since 2008.
Right, but the
So
indication they
this is
didn't
just
have an update.
It was formally adopted.
I knew that.
It is, the final draft is available, I believe, on our website and on Bay Lake Regional Planning. On Monday, January 27th, Brandon Robinson is going to be, I'm meeting with him, and he's going to deliver our official copies. And I believe at that time, we will be distributing to all the required other local units of government, organizations, whatever. So
Okay, so we're covered, it's just,
Monday,
We're ahead of
January
ourselves.
27th.
okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so drifting back to the agenda, we're going to back up to the approval of the minutes, Board of Supervisors meeting December 16th. This should be an easy task.
I make a motion to approve the meeting
Second.
of December
Motion to approve by
16th.
John, a second by whom?
I second.
All right, second by Jim. Anybody, let's just say, everybody in favor of this one, say aye? Aye. All right, we got something accomplished, I feel pretty good. All right, with that done, let's talk about the Muscat property. Where to begin with the continuing saga? I'm going to talk a little bit about the raise order, which is in front of you that you have seen. We talked about this a month ago, I believe. Anyway, let me just run through a quick recap. The Muscat review from 2019. We established ownership through the court system. So we finally were able to determine who it is that we are chasing down. With that ownership, we were also able to inform the Department of Justice so they can go and pursue removal of the fuel tank and the pump. So they are working on that. We also obtained a no liability letter from the DNR, which basically said we are okay to go in and remove selected buildings, some or all, as long as we leave the ground intact without any liability for what's in that tank or that pump. And that's good news. We put $25,000 aside over the last 2 years to begin removing those structures. And lastly, in December, I went and made a presentation to the Door County Finance Committee requesting their involvement at the county level in a TBD, because I didn't have all the numbers and et cetera, to ask for some added funding so that we might tackle more than one building a year for the rest of eternity. 2020, tomorrow morning I go back to the county, this time with the admin committee, to pursue a mutual cooperation agreement, which I understand is one of the precursors to getting a request in for funding back to the finance committee. So I'll make that presentation tomorrow. Sorry. In addition, we have received the individual demolition estimates. So we had Lily Bay, in this case, went out to the buildings and have given us an individual estimate, which you have in your packet, for each building. We have also gone out and solicited bids from an asbestos removal company, and those are also in the packet here. So we know by building how much it's going to cost, so that we can eventually make a determination that we're going to take down building A, B, or C based on how many funds we have available. The raise order, which we requested of the building inspector, was completed last week. He did an excellent job. The packet is extremely detailed and essentially says that no matter how you cut it, those buildings cannot be restored. The paperwork will be turned back over to our town attorney tomorrow after we approve the raise order resolution tonight. After our attorney gets this, she will arrange to have the owner served. She lives in New York. And after she is served, the clock will start for 30 days for her to respond. If she does not respond within the 30 days, she will be served the second time, and she'll have 20 days to respond. If not, after that term, we can go to court and ask for a default judgment to start removing the buildings. Tonight, we need to approve the raise order so that Nikki Henkin, who is the owner, can be served. With respect to her brother Julian, who we found out in the court process in December, he had passed away. We will publish in Lake County, Illinois, which was his last residence, and we'll post on the buildings our intentions to demo those buildings. All right. We have had one conversation with her where she indicated she might just throw in the towel and give the property to the county or city. But we have subsequently found out that because she has not filed paperwork to be the heir for her brother's estate, and there has been no filings in Illinois, she can't really give it to us. She would have to file a petition with the courts either here or in Illinois to be determined that she is the obvious heir, and then she could take some action. There has been no probate or evidence of a will filed in Illinois for Julian. So, with that as the background, and I think we're getting pretty close, I have in front of me resolution number 01-2020, raise order Muscat property. I don't think I really need to read this. Essentially, it is our authorization saying that we agree that we are going to take steps to raise this, and it is the formal process that will be used to notify the owner. All right. Does anyone have any questions with respect to this document?
No. No.
Okay. We need to approve this. We need a motion, and it's a roll call vote.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 01-2020, raise order for the Muscat property.
All right, a motion by John, a second by?
I second it.
Second by Jim. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Roll call.
That's right, thank you. All those want to have some roll call? Go at it, Amy.
John Stavenus,
Aye.
Sorry, hold on a minute. Back up.
Okay,
Apologize, go ahead.
so if we approve this raise order, which says that we're going to go through with the building inspector's order and post and serve and all that,
Yes.
are we committing ourselves on the financial end?
No.
Or is that going to be the next?
That would be next.
Okay.
And the reason that I'm sorry, I thought I made that clear, but in all of the estimates, I've had it broken down by building so that if and when we get to this point, we can say we have 25 to spend, we can take out building A and B and the rest wait. And also so that I can go to the county and solicit some matching, hopefully matching funds, so that we could go in and clean house once and for all. There's some economies of scale if we can do that. So, I'm sorry, was good? Good to go?
Yes,
In that case, we'll let Amy try roll call number 2.
John Stabenus.
Aye.
Jim Nellen.
Aye.
Mark Hain.
Aye.
Dan Wolfle.
Aye.
Linda Waite.
Aye.
Good, motion passes. Thank you. All right. In the interest of brevity, I'm going to skip the conversation on the town hall rental. Does anybody have an issue with that? I would like to, we'll just carry it over to next month. Let's carry it over to next month.
And then all this is coming back next month too, or whatever
Yes.
cost.
Yeah, once the raise, yes, we'll eventually bring back the entire Muscat thing. I'll keep you updated as we make progress in terms of what's up. We do have in your packet a lodging marketplace bill, and this is a request from Wisconsin Towns Association to go back to our representatives and highlight the importance of the room tax dollars. And Jim, maybe you want to just talk briefly about this?
I will, I'll make it brief. We'll have to learn a new expression. It's called online marketplace provider, i.e., it would be Airbnb, VRBO.
Okay.
And what's expected of them, right now, were to begin collecting room taxes as of January 1. But the problem we have is the problem that quite frankly preceded me, that Supervisor Chuck Tice was on to going back 2 years ago, which is if the online marketplace providers, if they pay us in what is called a bulk check, without distinguishing among the various municipalities, the bulk check is paid out on the basis of your zip code, we have no way of allocating it among the various municipalities. And a classic example is the zip codes we're in, because it includes the city of Sturgeon Bay, the town of Sturgeon Bay, the town of Sevastopol, the town of Nassauapi, the town of, I think of Jacksonport, and Egg Harbor. So what our representatives have done is they've introduced language to amend the current state statute to require the online marketplace providers to provide us an address of the properties, the total sales for each property, the total tax collected for each property, and the number of nights rented for each short-term rental, which will allow us to be able to figure out how to allocate the proceeds in the bulk check. It's in the process of being, I guess I believe there was an assembly hearing a week or so ago. I think that went well. The Wisconsin Hotel and Lodging Association is on board. The Wisconsin League of Municipalities is on board. I think it's gotten fairly widespread support, but nonetheless, it hasn't gone through the entire legislature. So we're awaiting consideration of this particular amendment that would hopefully get us out of the bind that we're in.
Okay, and so we are sending off to our representatives a letter basically recapping and saying our support for that particular bill. Please, juice up your activities.
That's right.
So, okay, good enough. So it's almost an FYI, but just to let you know what's up. Next item, proposed peg channel changes. And I'm going to carry this over pretty much to next month with one quick statement. The most recent pleasant experience that we have undergone, called the Quarry LLC, highlights the need for us as a town to expand our ability to broadcast what's going on. Having to send 50 people over to another facility was at least a nice relief valve, but I think we could also have helped ourselves out if we had moved ahead with the recommendation at some time, or move ahead with the recommendation to expand so that we broadcast live over YouTube, allowing basically anybody with a PC to understand what's going on in our meetings. So I want to bring that back. I'll bring it back next month and need some firm numbers from the cable people on what it's gonna cost us to make that change as a way. We have $6,500 in our capital plan. Obviously, I would like to spend less than that, or figure out where we need to go. And the last item is, please order a second microphone. You know, make life easy. I enjoyed watching it being passed around, but it's much better if we have two. So spend the money and let's go get one. I don't know why we had three and only ended up with one working, but obviously let's replace one in the interim, and I'll bring the rest of this back next month. All right? Switching to new business, this is just a house cleaning thing. According to Wisconsin Towns Association, we need to give the individual who hires and fires the people that work for us at the park the authority to do so. So you did that without telling us, huh? It's really nothing more than housekeeping, but in order to meet the requirements of the law, we're just going to put in motion, we'll take a motion to authorize Mark Hain as the chairman of the park board, the responsible party for hiring and monitoring the town employees, which are the only ones we have. So, pretty simple. We're going to take the legal opinion out of the Wisconsin Towns Association, attach the note of the minutes from this, and we will end up putting it in with our resolutions rather than doing another resolution, just so it's documented.
You want a motion on that?
Motion on that would be great.
Sure. I move that Mark Hain be authorized as chairman of the Parks Committee to exercise supervisory responsibility over the employees of the Parks Committee.
Mark, would you like to second that?
Can I?
You could.
Second.
All right. Motion by Jim, second by Mark. You have some discussion? Go ahead. It's all right, we'll be here.
Well, okay, so you specified park employee, but our town employee is under, I
The
mean, they
town
all.
board.
So, well, we don't really differentiate between park employee and town employee.
Well, I think they do.
Okay, well, I know we allocate as far as dollars go, if they come over here to cut lawn at the town hall, we try to split it up. So I'm talking about someone other than our appointed clerk treasurer, obviously.
Oh.
But your park employees also are considered town employees.
Right.
So,
Yes, I agree.
Could we
okay.
Could we modify it to say, town employees working for the park department? Would
Yeah.
that
Or
be
under
clear
the
enough?
supervision of the
Under the
park.
supervision of the park, yeah. You got that, Amy?
Yes.
I was hoping I could fire, but apparently not.
No, but I think she's authority to do the, no. I'm- All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Can I just make a point here? The motion designated Mark Hain specifically. Should something happen to Mark, you're.
We designated him as the park.
Proper way would be to say the chairman of the park committee or the park commission.
Well, I think
rather than
that's,
a specific name.
I think that's the way you should have, or maybe did. I said Mark Hain as the chairman, but we can make it the chairman of the park committee, that's not a problem.
Actually, the Park and Recreation
Park and
Board.
Rec Board, yes, thank you. Make it the Park and Rec Board. We'll get it right yet. All right.
So what is the motion?
The motion is,
Is that the chairman of the Park and Recreation Board be authorized to exercise supervisory responsibility of those employees working
for the park
for the Park and Recreation
committee, board.
Okay.
That's good. We'll get the right verbiage.
Under the supervision of the-
Still seconding it, okay. All right, we have a motion by
And a
Jim,
second.
a second by Mark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we got two things down, great. Okay, the next one, this is interesting. I got a tour. If you haven't taken a tour lately of the town hall, it's time to do it. The pictures tell the tale. We need to make an investment to get some adequate shelving throughout the building in different areas. I mean, the pictures show you we have just managed to fill everything in a haphazard way, and almost to the point that it's difficult to work around it, including someone who left, 35 boxes in my office. So what I'm asking to do is your agreement or support that we hire somebody, find somebody, get an estimate first. Find somebody that can come in and solve the storage problem by building us some shelving units in the various places that we need them. And I am also just started to chase down the possibility of digitizing all of our tax records. And we can do that at the cost I'm not sure. There seems to be, one is you can digitize it and index it, and you have a big bullet to bite up front because we have so many records. And then after that, it's not such a big deal. That's one option. The other option is there are companies out there that take your documents and they store them in a secure facility. And when you get a request for tax file for Dan Wolfel or whatever, they will go and pull the appropriate stuff, digitize it, and send it to us, and we'll pay for the storage and just that single digitization. So we're gonna take a look at that as a possibility, but does anybody?
Shelving sounds cheaper.
It is, but we're running out of space even with shelving, the records that just keep coming in, so.
How long do you keep all that?
Well, Amy got a new record listing of required document retention.
Like the assessment rolls, you have to keep forever.
Yeah,
So, you know, there's certain things that we can never get rid of.
and the pile continues to grow, so. So anyway, I'd like to go get some estimates, get some ideas, what's involved, figure out where we're going.
Yeah, and some of it probably needs to be secured as well. And then, as far as off-site storage, the county is working on an archives storage area where they may be accepting volumes of documents from other municipalities to store.
And you could shop for
Perhaps
furniture at the same time?
Perhaps for a fee, but off-site storage, secure, climate-controlled, because obviously these are documents that need to be preserved. So that might be something we'd want to look into a little later down the line
Okay,
when the county decides what they're going to do with that building.
all right. So unless anyone has an issue, we're gonna figure out a way to get some estimates, figure out what we can do. And then as a separate thing, we're gonna ask Laddie to clean up his office. Oh, did I not mention that, Laddie? I'll deal with you on that individually, one-on-one, how's that? Just to kind of keep you on your toes, that's okay.
Is the piano on your way?
It could be. Maybe we could digitize it. Okay, supervising employees, town storage, we're okay on. Next one is dealing with Northeast Asphalt's invoice. So when the bills came in for all the paving that we had done this year, we found that there was a $13,000 and change increase over the estimates, which kind of surprised Amy and then surprised me. So we went back to try and figure out why and what happened, because as you know, we use Bodwin engineers to do all of the bidding for us, and they do a very good job. But nonetheless, we didn't understand where this $13,000 came in. So as it turned out, my first call was to Bodwin to ask what had happened. And basically, in the estimates that they provided the contractor, they underestimated the amount of material that was used when you wedge a road. And wedging is where you build the road up before you put the second layer of blacktop on it so that you get an equal pitch to the road. And inside of that, unintentionally, they never picked up the phone to call us. And so we got a fairly significant surprise. So I tried to understand this a little better, so we went out to Egg Harbor, Jacksonport, and Bailey's Harbor to find out, because they all use Bodwin, if this issue is a reoccurring, new, whatever. And it turns out none of these people have had an issue with Bodwin, and they've used them for years. So I went back to Bodwin, I said, okay, what's the problem? Well, the problem turned out to be one that we are one of the few people that wedge before we pave. And all the other work that he has done, or they have done through the other towns, was either a total reconstruction or just an overlay. And total reconstruction and overlays, if you took the bids apart, you'd find that it's almost to the half pound right on the money. So it was a mistake that was made on their part. It was a mistake that they made by not informing us, and by the way, neither did Northeast Asphalt. They could have picked up the phone and said, hey, by the way, this changed, I just wanted to let you know. So it all snowballed up to, you know, here's the bill.
So if they do an overlay, how do they get their crown back, the 2.5% grade from the middle to the outside?
That's a discussion for another time. I have no idea, and I don't care at the moment.
Because if you just overlay
I agree.
a road, you're gonna get the same cracks, you're gonna get the same everything right back.
John, I honestly don't know, and I didn't ask the question. I think the way we go, frankly, is the correct way.
Yeah.
And I would continue to go with a wedge and overlay where it's
Right.
appropriate. So, so at any rate, he underestimated the wedge material. I contacted the other municipalities to make sure that we weren't, you know, that this wasn't an ongoing problem, didn't have an issue. I informed Bodwin, obviously, of my dissatisfaction, and I pressed them to make an adjustment on their bill. I also pressed Northeast Asphalt because I didn't think that in the way that this was handled was correct. So I was able to adjust, Bodwin adjusted their bill by $1,000, which is a little less than half of the bills that we pay them, which I think was a fair course of action on their part to take. I do not want to stop using them. They are a valuable tool, but, you know, there's a lesson learned here. And at the same time, I talked with Northeast Asphalt. It took us a little longer to reach an agreement. In their contract, you know, they did the work, but they also did the work late. So we discussed the fact that there is a built-in clause in there we could charge back based on the fact that the job was done after our deadline. But immaterial. The issue was resolved this morning when Northeast Asphalt came back to us and offered to split the difference with us and waive roughly $6,000. But my recommendation to you is that that amount is more than I would expect them to make, given that they did the work. They did make a mistake, and I shouldn't say a mistake, but it wasn't the best possible way that it could have been communicated. And if you wanted to play hardball, you could do the fine, which I don't want to do. Still want to use Northeast Asphalt for our work, just like we would the county, and continue to bid it. So my recommendation to the board would be is that at most, we would take somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 off of the bill, off of the $13,000 with Northeast, and pay the balance. They did do the work, they did use the materials.
But I thought that's why we were using Bodwin, so that our liability, because we couldn't figure out the tonnage between the county and Northeast Asphalt, they were all different. So we went with Bodwin, they're the professionals. I think they should have insurance to pay the bill.
Yeah, I have that same feeling. I had that same discussion with both Steve and Peter Hirth. I think we reached a reasonable solution. It's not perfect, but I don't want to financially impact either one of those, and I think it's a good step. That would be my recommendation. And you know, you have to prove the funds because it's over what we estimated, so you'd have to do a motion if you agree. If not, you know, we can go back, but I think it's a reasonable approach. So. Sure.
Well, I think, yes, I have faith in Bodwin Engineering. That makes it really easy for the board and the clerk. Well worth, I believe, the $2,400 that we paid them. So well worth it, and mistakes happen, fine. And if they're willing to concede a $1,000 refund on that, or credit for next year's work, I'm fine and dandy with that. Mr. Chairman, you suggested between $2,000 and $3,000 discount on the Northeast bill, if we wanted to split that at $2,500. I think Northeast would be happy with that.
And I would be fine with that if the rest of the board agrees. Motion, if anyone agrees or disagrees, or?
Well, I would say if it happens again, they're liable for the whole thing.
Baldwin.
Bodwin.
Oh, I wouldn't disagree with that. You know,
I think Northeast Asphalt did their due diligence. I mean, they wanted to give us, they assured us that we were getting a product that would hold up, and unfortunately, if it requires more wedging, it requires more wedging. It's just gonna have the road last that much longer.
Yeah, and I mean, if
Yeah.
we had an issue with the other communities where it had been a problem with one of them, I'd take a different stance on it. But I think given the circumstances, it's a reasonable solution and not carry it forward.
So I'm sorry, the extra cost was what, how much?
We'd be out of pocket about 11,000, a little
Well,
less.
it was
10,500.
13,916.
You got it? Okay. So,
And was the wedging, was it on all three projects, or was it just
it
on Clark Lake?
was mostly all on Clark Lake.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a
which was
real-
the worst road.
That was the worst, yes.
That's where Amy's family lives, and they drive that
Right.
road a lot with
Yeah.
heavy equipment. I could be wrong.
So the final estimate is 11,000 that we would pay.
It's 13,916, correct,
Right.
Amy? Less 2,500, so that would be $11,416 that we would pay Northeast Asphalt.
And we'll take
And crediting, that Bowdoin would give us a $1,000 credit for next year's.
Right. So about 10 grand if you net it out, maybe. So, I don't want to, pardon me?
Should I make that motion?
You can if you would.
All right, I'll make the motion that we pay Northeast Asphalt $11,416 and whatever odd cents in full settlement of their invoice number 615-616-01, and that we will secure a $1,000 credit from Bowdoin Engineers for our 2020 assessment or
Road bids.
road bids.
Okay. Got a motion by Linda.
I'll second that.
Second by John. Any further discussions by anyone? Nothing? Okay.
I'm sorry,
Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carried. Thank you. All right, we're down to resolutions and ordinances, which we have none, at least none left to do. Financial reports, you have the account balances as of December 31st. You have the budget versus actuals, and you have the transaction list by date. So all of those are in your packet. Amy, do you have anything you'd like to share with us regarding the treasurer's report?
I do. We paid our first quarter of fire dues to the Sturgeon Bay Fire Department. We have also gone through the January settlement, which means that we have paid the schools and the county their portion of the taxes that were paid in December. And we have also received the first quarter of our general transportation aids.
Okay, so we would need a motion to approve the financial reports for December 2019.
I'll make the motion to approve the financial reports from December 2019.
Motion by Mark, second by?
I'll second that.
Second by Jim. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is, have you all had a chance to look at the vouchers, bills, and claims? And then we would need a motion to approve December 16th through January 20th, 2020, voucher bills and claims.
I would move that we approve the payment of vouchers, bills, and claims for the period December 16th, 2019 through January 20th, 2020.
All right, motion by Jim, second by?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Linda. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Oral committee commission reports. Does anyone have, do you have something you wanted to talk about?
Yes, our Door County Coastal Byway, so at our meeting up in Bailey's Harbor last Friday, the chairman of that council, Ann Miller, is looking into National Scenic Byway designation and All-American Byways designation. It's a very complicated application and procedure. We're talking about hiring a consultant to pull all of that information together for us. I don't think it will be any additional expense to any of the municipalities. We do have.
Yeah, right.
I've said that before, right? Yeah, we've all heard that story before. But we do have funds on hand that would hopefully cover that process of the application fee and the consulting. So I will keep you posted on that.
One question about that, if I could. If they were successful in doing that, would that help us with the pending billboards?
Well, our Door County zoning ordinance has adopted whatever, and they will try to enforce whatever state and national standards there would be on signage.
Okay.
They've actually incorporated that into their recent text amendment regarding signage.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay, because we know we're going to see a couple really nice billboards real soon.
Becky Kerwin from Land Use was at our meeting too.
Okay, great. Anything else?
They've
Anyone else?
actually been out measuring for those signs.
Right.
They've been out measuring for the signs.
I know.
They're ready to roll.
I can't wait.
From the median, between Old Highway and New Highway. They've been out there
I know
many
they have
times in the last week and a half.
Staked them, and it's going to be very disappointing to see those, but Culvers will be happy. Okay, oh, Linda, guess what? You're up. Door County Board, District 14 Supervisors Report.
I'll keep it short. Okay, the next Door County Board of Supervisors meeting is next Tuesday, January 28th at 10 a.m. at the Government Center downtown. Also, I have promised that I will help to promote awareness of the 2020 census. So starting March 12th, those census forms will be starting to go out, and you can respond by mail, you can respond by a phone app, you can respond by email, and then those will be collated to whatever. And between late April and August, if you don't respond, that's when the field workers will go out and try to reach those people that didn't respond. So it's not scary. You've heard of the song, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. This is 50 ways to use your senses. So census data is very important when it comes to districting, developing, future school use, all kinds of things. So, and I did attend the flood information session at the ADRC last Thursday evening. There were over 400 people there. The United States Army Corps of Engineers put on an excellent presentation. This manual really explains a lot about what shore property owners can do if they do have damage. So if you can go onto their website, or you can contact Dan Kane at Emergency Management. And also, Laddie did record that session. It was about 2 hours, and it's probably posted to YouTube already, so it was fully recorded. Lots of good information on how you might cure some of those damages.
A lot of rock being put in the county now. The quarry might be reactivated. I accidentally skipped the minutes from the Plan Commission meeting of November 13th, but they're in your packet, and we will put those on file. I did that.
The board?
Yeah, I went back and we did
I'm
that.
sorry.
No, that's okay. I appreciate it. It's been a rather disconnected evening. Okay, under license and permits, you have the building permits and also the report from our building inspector and the invoice from Door County Inspections in your package. If there's any questions with respect to that. And we're going to move on to correspondence. The Door County League of Women Voters is encouraging residents to check your voter registration ahead of the elections. And there's a process, if you go to myvotewisconsin.gov, that'll allow you to do that. There are some people who are obviously going to be removed from the rolls eventually if they can settle it in the courts. So if you're concerned, you can recheck. There's also a package in here. This actually came up at the meeting on Tuesday, I think, regarding the discussion with the Door County Bicycle, Pedestrian, and Recreational Facilities Plan. There's a meeting planned for January 30th from 5 to 7 at the Government Center. That's going to talk about bicycle pedestrian plans. I think you had that in your meeting the other day. This was interesting reading. As you know, we filed an application for the with the Department of Transportation for some extra funding that the government did for 1 year, and the possibility you could apply to maybe get 90% funding. If we win this, we should all go buy lottery tickets, because 1,030 town applications were turned in requesting $568 million for a pool of 28.7. So the math was done for us, but what it says is maybe 5% of the 1,030 applications might see a nickel. So I don't plan on having your road paved real soon. We'll keep you abreast of it. The good news from Wisconsin Towns Association is they feel that having that many communities come in and tell the DOT and the governor that our roads need a lot of help should hopefully put some focus on it, and maybe next year they'll see to make another fund available. You also have a copy of the city fire department report, a copy of all of, this is interesting too. You have all the information on the taxes in surrounding communities, our communities and properties. For example, this particular report says that 60% of all the vacant land in the town of Sevastopol is owned by residents, 40% by non-residents. It tells us who the highest paying taxpayers are in our town, not in our town, in the county. So if you're interested, Bay Ship paid $249,944.84 in taxes last year. So I'm sure that Sturgeon Bay is elated to have them there. Under tax detail, it also shares with you the cost per thousand for both Sevastopol and the Sturgeon Bay District of Sevastopol. And it shows you the appropriate increase as a result of the school referendum. And it goes on, there's just a lot of good information in here. One of the things that I thought was interesting is gross real estate taxes, who pays the most tax by community and whether you're resident or non-resident. In our town, 58% of our residents pay the tax and 42% are seasonal. In just these other three communities, Egg Harbor, Ephraim, and Sister Bay, they are 71, 70, and 62% of the tax base is paid by non-residents. So, big surprise there. So, at any rate, if you ever want to look at that information, Amy has it. I won't bore you with any more details. And I think I'm down to, oh yes, this is the result from Land Use Services of the conditional use request for Dan Schott for the conversion of the storage buildings, which got approved. You have the listing by those people that have a, sorry, brain is tongue-tied, room tax permit, thank you. A little note from the Nature Conservancy making a donation to our town, thanking us for providing fire protection for the lands that they own. A copy of a pending application for proposed riprap on Memorial Drive for Mary and Mark Depry, who are moving to Bay Shore. And that is the extent of correspondence. So with that, we have a few announcements. First half of your taxes are due by January 31st if you haven't paid them. Our office will be closed January 30th and 31st. I have no idea why. The Board of Supervisors meeting, next scheduled one is February 17th. And there is a primary election for Justice of the Supreme Court on February 18th. Polls open at 7 and close at 8. Agendas for next month, please let us know if there are any you'd like me to put on, but right now I will bring back the two I discussed earlier and anything else that might come along. And with that, we're down to John's favorite part of it.
Real quick.
Oh,
When
real
is
quick.
when is the RPC meeting? February what? You wanna just kinda get that?
I
out
don't
there?
know if they actually established a date yet.
Usually the first and third Thursday afternoons at
Okay.
2 or 3 p.m.
All
But
right.
it will be a public hearing. It will be published in the paper. We will get a notice.
Okay.
Landowners within so many feet will get a notice.
And I believe it's gonna possibly be held at the senior center, the ADAR,
Yeah, I heard that.
new senior center. So, okay. Any other things? Otherwise, we're gonna let John make a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion by John to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Oh, Jim does. Motion by John,
Say, wait a
second by
minute.
Jim to adjourn. All
Nobody's
those in
gonna
favor
second.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.